Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is iOLANDE Melody. Today I want to talk about a really important topic, which is cycle syncing. I have been on a rampage of research when it comes to this topic, and I strongly believe that it has changed my life so much. So today's video is going to be all about the 4 key stages, that women go through every single month. If you are a woman watching and you've never heard of cycle syncing before, this video is going to blow your mind. It will answer so many questions that you may have had, or at least it did for me. The more I learnt about this, the more light bulb moments were happening just one after the other. And if you are a man watching, I do encourage you to still watch this video because it can help you to gain such a deeper understanding of women. It will, again, answer so many questions that you may have about why women are the way that they are. You might have a girlfriend and think, why is it that she's sometimes so lovely and sweet and carefree, and then 2 weeks down the line she just starts going crazy? It's like something's taken over her brain. I'm going to cover a lot of things. Obviously all about cycle syncing and the different phases that you go through, but also PMS symptoms and why, even though they're common, they are not something that every woman just has to deal with. PMS symptoms are actually a sign that something is wrong within the body. By the end of this video, I really hope that every female watching will feel inspired with this information. This video is going to be scientific, practical, and spiritual, so let's just jump into it. Most women have been brought up not really understanding much about their menstrual cycle. Not many of us were really taught much about it in school, and if you were to ask the average woman, they would say that your menstrual cycle is just an inconvenient time of the month where you bleed and then that's it. You get cramps, PMS symptoms, and then the information just stops there. But in reality, there is so much more going on that no one ever talks about. So a woman's cycle can actually vary between 21 and 35 days, but typically we're told that the average is every 28 days. If you are healthy and you have balanced hormones, your cycle length should stay the same every single month, like clockwork. So say, for example, if you have a 30-day cycle, your period should start every single time you get to day 30. But because hormonal imbalance is such a common thing nowadays, a woman's cycle can be all over the place now. However, the good news is, the more you learn about cycle syncing and the more that you honour your cycle, the easier your periods will get, the lighter they'll get, the days might get shorter, and the PMS symptoms will go away. A man's hormonal cycle runs on a 24-hour clock. Men's hormones are in line with the sun. Men will get a testosterone boost as the sun rises, and it will lessen as the sun is setting. And every single 24 hours, the clock is reset. Now for women, it's a whole other story. Women's cycles follow the cycle of the moon, which is typically 28 days. A woman's hormones will actually need roughly 28 days to complete the hormonal cycle. And there are so many fluctuations within this cycle that will affect a woman and how she feels drastically. Your cycle actually consists of 4 key stages, and menstruation is just one of them. I'm going to show you a graph now, and again this is a rough guide, every woman is different, but the way that people track their cycle is that day 1 is the day you start bleeding, so it starts with your period. You then go into a phase which is called the follicular phase. During this time your energy levels will be rising, and just a little note here, the follicular phase technically does start as well on the first day of your period, but for the rest of this video we're going to denote it as its own phase. The follicular phase is the phase that leads up to ovulation. So on day 1 of your period, you will typically feel the lowest energy level that you will throughout the whole month. But this only lasts for a short amount of time because your energy is slowly increasing. Once you stop bleeding, you will really start to feel a boost of energy. And the scientific reason behind this is that your estrogen levels rise rapidly during the follicular phase. Typically, it will last between 10 to 14 days. But like I say, every woman is different. It may be a little bit shorter or longer. Once you get to roughly day 14, you go into your ovulatory phase. This is, believe it or not, the only time during your cycle that you are actually fertile. Technically, you will only ovulate for 12 to 24 hours. However, you are actually fertile for a good few days around that. So that's why some people like to say that the ovulatory phase is longer than just one day. Because putting fertility aside, the energy that you feel during this time is highly potent. When you're in your ovulatory phase, you feel the most social. Your communication is at its peak. You're full of energy. You're most likely, if you train, for example, you're most likely to hit PBs in the gym. You'll feel stronger. You'll be able to lift heavier weights if you weightlift. You'll want to dance, do cardio, and also your appetite will be lower. In addition to this, your face actually becomes more symmetrical. For most women, this is their favourite part of the month, but a lot of the time, they're not really aware of it. They just notice that they feel different. This is what I mean about light bulb moments. Typically, during ovulation is when a woman feels her absolute best. During this time, you also get a big boost of testosterone. This is the only time during the month that we get testosterone. After ovulation has happened, we then go into what people call the luteal phase. This phase typically lasts between 10 to 14 days. During this phase, suddenly our estrogen levels drop, the testosterone drops, and then into the mid-luteal phase, we start to experience a rise in progesterone, until it slowly gets to the days leading up to your period, and again, it will plummet. Now, what does that mean? It means that during your luteal phase, as you get into the thick of it, as it gets closer to your period, you will start to experience less energy. You may feel fatigued. This is when a lot of women start to experience PMS symptoms. You might be trying to go to the gym only to notice that you feel less motivated, you can't lift as heavy. Things might feel exhausting, whereas during your ovulatory phase, doing the same tasks was fine. Now all of a sudden, you're tired. This is also a time where you experience cravings. You may want to eat more, but the reason for this is that during your luteal phase, your metabolism is speeding up. Your body is doing more work behind the scenes, hence why most women tend to feel hungrier during this time. Also, while you're in the follicular and ovulatory phase, your body is predominantly using up carbohydrates as fuel, whereas in the luteal phase, your body is more likely to kick into your fat reserves. The reason behind chocolate cravings is most likely due to a drop in blood sugar levels, but also magnesium. If you want to learn more about magnesium, you can check out my video about magnesium deficiency. I also have a video about how to make your own magnesium spray, because believe it or not, magnesium is best absorbed through the skin as opposed to orally. But if you're still getting those chocolate cravings, I also recommend my video about cacao. So every evening I drink 2 to 3 cups of cacao, which I know to some people is quite a lot. I'm not recommending that you do that, but even just having 1 cup of cacao in the evening can really help to satiate the chocolate cravings, because I personally don't experience chocolate cravings anymore. So if you were to really simplify it, the first 2 weeks of your cycle roughly, your energy levels are rising, and the latter 2 weeks, they are going downwards. So there's the scientific explanation of what is going on physiologically. However, let's get on to the spiritual elements of this. This is the part where you start to become empowered. Each one of these 4 phases is a microcosm of the seasonal changes that we experience in life, in the world. When most people who do cycle syncing describe the different phases, they will say that their period feels like winter. It feels like a time to retract, to be more solitary, be more introspective, to take time to basically hibernate. As soon as their period ends and they go into the follicular phase, that's the feeling of spring. Suddenly, everything feels inspirational. You have all these ideas. You suddenly have more energy. You might feel a bit more social. By the time that it gets to your ovulation, that is the summertime. And the summer always feels so short. Like it just comes and goes. Like ovulation. You only get a few days of it. But anyway, during the summery ovulatory phase, everything is exciting, fun, and then you get to the luteal phase, where it's autumn time. Things are starting to slow down, and you're preparing for that hibernation, the winter period. During each one of these phases, your strengths and weaknesses will differ. On a spiritual level, each one of these phases is drawing you towards a certain dominant energy. And when we talk about cycle syncing, what we're aiming to do is to honor our cycle and what it's trying to tell us. It encourages us to listen to our body and work with our cycle as opposed to constantly working against it, which is something that I personally was doing before I started cycle syncing. Believe it or not, for the past few years, I had been filming during my luteal phase. Literally the worst part of my luteal phase. The time where I'm feeling least attractive, I don't want to talk to anyone, I've got the least energy, my communication's off. When I started cycle syncing, the first thing I started doing was filming during my ovulatory phase, and oh my god, the difference that I feel, it makes sense. And because I've started doing this, what's happened is my cycle, the fluctuations in hormones, has started to level out because I'm listening to my body now. It has made me so much happier. Another thing that I just want to mention is don't feel disheartened when you see that you have a 14-day luteal phase and then your ovulatory phase only lasts a few days. Because the good news is that your hormones, as you can see on the graph, they flow through the phases. So they flow into each other. If you honor your cycle, you can reap the benefits of feeling like you're in the ovulatory phase for a good while. And what I also noticed is that my luteal phase, I used to get PMS symptoms really bad. Seriously, people used to think I was a psycho at work because my hormones, oh my god. I just turned into a monster, really. But since cycle syncing and recognizing that I am actually in my luteal phase and that my body's saying, slow down a bit, don't put pressure on yourself, all of a sudden the PMS symptoms went. Seriously. Because I was aware that during this time, so during your luteal phase, you might feel like you're hyper-focusing on things that are negative. Things irritate you more. If there's anything wrong in your life, it's during your luteal phase where you'll suddenly hone in on it and be like, this makes me really angry. Why is this the way it is? I need to change this. Men, if you're in a relationship with a woman, pay attention to which phase she's in, because the luteal phase will be the worst time to have an argument. Things can get really blown out of proportion. During a woman's luteal phase, her intuition gets stronger and stronger. A woman will be her most psychic and intuitive during her period. So the closer she gets to that time, her focus will be more on her feelings and her emotions. It is a time to analyze if there are any problems in her life. This is what the body is telling her to do. Now, I always had this theory, and no one had ever spoke about this before, but it just intuitively, I felt like it made sense. And I have always thought this, even before I learned about cycle syncing, that in the days leading up to a woman's period, her tolerance levels for anything really just goes out the window. If a woman is being treated disrespectfully, if she's going against her integrity, if she's people pleasing, if she's not treating her body with respect, all of that will bubble up to the surface during her luteal phase. When a woman reacts very emotionally during this phase and maybe lashes out, it's a sign that something needs to change. During a woman's follicular and ovulatory phase, you have a lot more tolerance. You kind of let things slide a lot more. You may take on more commitments because you have more energy at the time and you think, yeah, I'll just agree to everything that people are asking me to do, like it's fine. And then as soon as your luteal phase happens, you're like overwhelmed and you think, why did I agree to that? This might explain why some women can be very flaky, because, and I'm not pointing any fingers because I have actually been like this myself, right? I'll give myself as an example. And again, it was another light bulb moment. During my follicular phase, there were times where I would feel really, really social and really outgoing, and I'd agree to, say, meet up with someone for coffee. At the time that I agreed to it, I was feeling very social. I was feeling very confident. But typically when you arrange to go for coffee with someone, it's usually a week or two down the line. Big problem. What would happen is I was not aware of it, but I'd agree to something in my follicular phase. I'd then go into my luteal phase and, oh no, I'm supposed to dress up and go and meet up with someone and go for coffee. And suddenly I was like, I really, really don't want to leave the house. I don't feel like this. Like there was just something within me where I thought, I really don't feel social right now. And typically on the flip side, most women, if they're asked to do something social during their luteal phase, they'll find an excuse or something to get out of it because at that moment, they don't feel like being social. And then as soon as it comes to their ovulatory phase, they think, oh, I wish I'd have actually agreed to that because now I'm in the mood to go out. And I cannot emphasize this enough when I say that hormones are so powerful, right? Men and women are very different. And because of our hormones and our biology, there are certain strengths and weaknesses that both men and women experience. And the more we understand each other, the more unity there will be. There are, of course, disadvantages to men when it comes to their testosterone levels. Men will experience issues that women maybe can't relate to. That doesn't mean to say that we have to hate men. But honestly, from personal experience, since I've been tracking my cycle, this is not some imaginary thing that is going on in women's heads. This is a legitimate thing that every woman has to deal with. But I don't believe that we should look at it as a hindrance because, like I say, our body moves like the seasons. So here I'm going to run through a few guidelines of things that you can do to honour your cycle during each phase. And remember, the things that I'm saying are meant to give a spark of inspiration. Before listening to anyone talk about what you should be doing during each phase of your cycle, the most important thing to do is to listen to your own body and figure out what your own body is asking you to do. But as a rough guide, these are the types of things that I've been doing. So during your period, that's a time to rest, to take a break, maybe do some extra self-care. This is the perfect time for taking a bath, like a magnesium bath, doing things that are regenerative, relaxing. I personally try my hardest never to arrange anything social during that time, but obviously everybody's lifestyle is different. But above all else, this is a time to not put pressure on yourself. That's something that we all have control over, is the way that we speak to ourselves during these phases. Before I knew about cycle syncing, I would put so much pressure on myself and go crazy at the gym when I felt fatigued, exhausted, self-conscious, and I really didn't need to do that. If you feel like doing moderate exercise during this time, then go ahead, because moderate intensity can help you to just feel better, like moving your body. But like I say, just listen to what it's telling you. Yoga is especially beneficial during this time as well. Going into your follicular phase, this is a good time for making plans, You may feel like spring cleaning all of a sudden. You may feel like sorting things out, maybe doing a deep clean. Your creative ideas will be coming in a lot easier. Also, exercise-wise, what I've found personally is exercise just makes you feel even better during this phase. Another good thing is that during this time, you'll typically have a lower appetite. So for me personally, I will do intermittent fasting during this time, but that's only because that's what my body's telling me to do. During your ovulatory phase, obviously, is the best time to utilize that energy. You're gonna feel strong, you're gonna feel energetic, you're gonna feel social. So anything that's important to you that requires that type of energy, try and time it for your ovulatory phase, because your body is gonna be on your side doing this. As you get deeper into your luteal phase, you may find that those high intensity workouts don't feel as good. You may not be feeling as strong. Some women actually recommend that you train completely different for each phase. Now, I personally, after doing research about it and testing it out personally in my own life, I didn't like the idea of not lifting weights for a whole 2 weeks of the month. If you do weightlifting, you'll know what I mean. I took time off from weightlifting in my last luteal phase and I didn't feel mentally good about it. What I think is a better approach is whatever your exercise regime is, just be aware that during your luteal phase, maybe don't push yourself as much as you usually do. If you do weightlifting, don't try and hit a PB during this time. Also, if I'm really fatigued, what I'll do instead of weightlifting is I'll do a banded workout, and I may even do a few less reps and focus on my technique. During your luteal phase, you are much more sensitive to cortisol. Cortisol, as we know, is the stress hormone, which causes you to store fat more easily because it puts your body into fight or flight. Some say that exercising during your luteal phase can potentially be counterproductive because it's raising your cortisol levels and causing stress on the body. But then my counter-argument for that would be that exercise reduces stress, mental stress. So my general conclusion here is that during your luteal phase, do not stress yourself out, because the stress will actually cause you to gain weight and to feel old. This is a new approach that I've taken in my life. Before I allow something to stress me out, I think to myself, what's more important? If I stress myself out, it causes damage to my body and my cells, and it's simply not worth it. When you start to understand that stress ages you, causes you to gain weight, causes your body to malfunction, if you bear that in mind, you'll remember that nothing should compromise your health. So I mentioned earlier that I would discuss PMS and birth control. All forms of hormonal birth control will disrupt a woman's cycle completely. I know that this isn't very good news to hear, but it's very important that people are aware of this. Let's use the example of the hormonal birth control pill. Now, I myself have been on this in the past, many years ago. I was on microgynon. Now, with this pill in particular, I was told by the doctor that I could basically pick and choose whether or not I had a period that month. You're supposed to take the pill every single day, and then if you want a period, you can stop taking the pill for maybe 4 to 5 days. What the doctors don't tell you is that the period that you experience is not actually a real period. The bleeding that occurs is actually a withdrawal bleed. Most hormonal birth control convinces your body that it's already pregnant. This changes up your natural cycle so much that it's almost unrecognisable. With some of these pills, what it actually does is levels out your estrogen and progesterone so that it pretty much stays the same throughout the month. I remember that when I was on the pill, I felt significantly different. A lot of women report that they have a lot of mood swings, and this happened to me, and that's why I changed over to the copper coil, which I know a lot of women are too scared to get this done. With the copper coil, it doesn't necessarily release any hormones into your body. However, I am aware that it does still cause some hormonal disruption by proxy. if you get what I mean. But just a pre-warning, there's a lot of women out there who have had a negative experience with the copper coil, so I'm not necessarily promoting it, I'm just sharing information really. If you are experiencing PMS symptoms, like I said earlier, I know it's incredibly common. Almost every woman that I have ever known has experienced or constantly experiences PMS. But the thing that's shocking is that PMS is actually not something that we naturally have to deal with. Although it is common, it is not a natural part of what you should experience during your cycle. It is a sign that there is something wrong. Now that could be on an emotional level, a physical health level, even something as simple as a woman being too much in her masculine energy, which is something that I've recently been learning a lot about, and that has also changed my life drastically. In this modern day, women are being encouraged to be more masculine and to take a masculine approach to everything. And this is not only an inversion of nature, but it's something that the body reacts to in a negative way. If you live a holistic lifestyle and you're on the spiritual path of healing and you're taking care of your well-being and your health, your cycle will not feel like this horrible burden. In fact, looking at it in this way perpetuates the problem. I saw this one woman on YouTube talk about this, and there are some women that have periods that last sometimes 7 days long, and they've got cramps all the way through, debilitating PMS, headache, sickness, all of this. The mainstream wants you to think that this is normal, but actually, if you live a holistic lifestyle and you're in a healthy state, you can actually lessen the length of your period. This woman that I watched said that she now has a period that lasts 1 day. And I can also say this from personal experience. Since I started implementing cycle syncing and taking maca, looking after my health more and more, I too have found that my periods have become shorter and shorter and lighter. So this is possible. You don't have to suffer like the mainstream tells you that you do. The mainstream will tell you that there's no solution, but I'm here to tell you that there is. And I personally believe that the more that people learn about cycle syncing, the better the world will become. I mean, there's many things that need to be fixed in the world, but this is something that every woman can benefit from if they know about it. So I'm just going to end this video here. I hope that you found this video informative. Let me know if you want some more videos about this subject, if you want me to elaborate on anything, because it's obviously a subject that I'm quite passionate about. Thank you to everyone who likes, comments, shares and subscribes, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you, bye!